Hello ladies and gentlemen, Max here and welcome to another GameCast review. Today's review is a bit different than the normal ones. I'm reviewing Epic Games and People Can Fly's new collaboration project, FortNite, for the Xbox One. FortNite is going to be in paid early access for about a year before releasing for free to play. So instead of this being a final review, I'm considering it more of a provisional review. As the year goes on and the game keeps changing, I'm going to continue to produce content on it with a final review coming with its full release. With that said, let's get on to my review of the current state of the game, starting off, as always, with gameplay. My fascination with FortNite's gameplay mechanics is both good and bad. I despise its randomized pay-to-win progression systems and convoluted extra layers, yet every time I get into a match and the game gets going, I end up having a blast and wanting to come back for another. Each round of FortNite consists of an early game filled with resource gathering and exploring. During this time, you and 3 friends will encounter mini events like a survivor to be saved or an enemy encampment to eliminate. Doing these results in material rewards used for crafting weapons and traps. You'll also be exploring the map and searching for your main objective, usually a point to defend. Resource gathering is broken into 3 types: wood, brick, and metal. When exploring, you'll use your pickaxe to destroy basically anything you see to harvest these. Once at the defense point, you'll take advantage of FortNite's wonderfully easy to use build mode to create a structure around the defense point. These structures can be built out of the 3 materials, with weakest to strongest being wood, brick, and then metal. These structures can be as bland or elaborate as you like. Some rounds you'll get by with a brick cube around the point, while others you'll end up with a building-sized fort complete with exterior walls and mini forward bases. FortNite has no limitations on where you can build, so you can do so to your heart's content. You can then decorate your fort with a variety of traps to be placed on the floors, walls, and ceilings. Some deal damage to the horde, while others heal you and your squad. Now your base is done. Time to test it. Activating the point starts the horde-like waves of enemies eager to ruin your day. These start out easy enough, with low health zombies and slightly stronger tanks making up most of your early game adversaries, but as the game goes on, the enemies get pretty creative. You'll start fighting anything from a bomb-lobbing witch to a horrifying flying monster that kills you in 2 hits. You'll fend these adversaries off with some pretty generic weaponry, shotguns, machine guns, snipers, etc., with some melee weapons peppered in. Each class in FortNite has its own special skills you unlock, which are a bit more exciting, such as the Ninja Sword Sweep or the Outlander's Teddy Bear Ultimate. I've found it almost too easy to fend the horde off, especially in the first world. Most rounds, they don't even touch the base or the traps, with my squad and I holding them back right at their spawns. It's a problem that persisted throughout most of my 30-odd hours with the game. From this problem spawned others. While the horde is easy to hold back, I'm wasting a ton of ammo doing so. Crafting more ammo uses materials I would need for traps, but my traps are being wasted anyways, so do I really need them? But since my squad isn't spending time resource hoarding anymore, I'm going to run out of them regardless. These are some of the many discussions you'll have with yourself when playing. I ended up just using melee weapons most rounds to conserve ammo, but having to do that could really be a turnoff for some players. Not to mention, weapons degrade somewhat quickly, and with no way to repair them, materials must be delegated to crafting them as well. These limitations force you to ignore some of FortNite's best parts just so you can survive another round. You'll stop putting so much effort into bases because it's so easy to hold off enemies. You won't craft the most legendary weapons because you know they'll break quickly and you don't really need them. You won't throw down traps because they'll more than likely be a waste. On top of all this, you still have a home base that you'll need to save for if you want to progress through the game. Now, let me stress that these are problems you'll encounter in the first world, which makes up around 20 to 22 hours of the game. If you don't get sick of it by then, you'll break into World 2, and that's what will make or break the game for you. World 2 sees a necessary spike in difficulty. However, that spike may be a bit too much. All those problems I just stated, well, they're gone, and now comes the other side of them. Enemies are stronger and harder. In fact, they're so much stronger and harder that you'll have a hard time building a base because you won't have enough resources to spend on it. If you aren't wasting a bunch of materials on crafting legendary weapons, you won't be very effective. Traps are now necessary, but that also means you'll be spending 20 to 30 minutes around exploring before actually getting into the fight. That may be fun every once in a while, but when you're spending 30 minutes a game every single game just gathering resources, it starts to get a bit old, especially during extended play sessions. There are 2 solutions to this, neither of which you may like: grinding or paying for microtransactions. That's right, FortNite is one of the many modern games jumping onto the Loot Crate bandwagon. Known as Loot Llamas, these consist of different heroes, survivors, weapons, schematics, materials, and more. These are unlocked through normal play, but not as frequently as they should be. In between rounds is a bunch of management: squad management, schematic management, skill management, level management, which is all poorly explained. You just sort of figure it out as you go, or you look up guides. As you place survivors in your squad, you'll receive stat boosts based on their class type and level. There are multiple squads that focus on different stats. You can also spend experience cards on weapons, heroes, and survivors to level them up. These cards are somewhat limited, however, which means you'll only be sticking to 1 or 2 heroes instead of switching around frequently, unless you want to pony up that hard-earned cash. As previously mentioned, most of the game modes in FortNite are some variation on Defend the Point, though there are a few that have you exploring and finding objectives instead. The game could use a bit more variety, but that's sure to come as early access continues. Now, believe it or not, there are still some game mechanics I haven't touched on, but I don't feel I've experienced enough on them yet. There's still another couple dozen hours I have in the game before I've experienced what seems to be everything they have so far. These will be covered in a future review. Anyways, it's time for story. FortNite opens up with an intriguing cutscene explaining that the world has basically ended. Most of the population has disappeared in the flash of an eye, and those still alive are holding up to defend against the storm of which is generating the horde of monsters that have taken over. You are the leader of what seems to be the last base on the planet. Your goal is to expand that base and take in survivors while figuring out what the hell is going on. Is the storm a natural occurrence, or maybe a government experiment gone wrong? Barring this cutscene, most of the story is told in between missions via character interactions or by audio logs found at certain points in the game. It's drip fed to you pretty slowly, and I still have a couple dozen hours before reaching any endgame, so I can't say how it's likely to turn out. I'm not even sure if the developers know yet. I can say that it doesn't seem like a throwaway story though. There are signs hinting at a deeper lore than the game seems to let on. My favorite example being the faces of people attached to most of the horde. This can be easily missed as it's something I didn't really notice until about 10 hours in, but it makes me think there's something sinister happening. It also makes me wonder what other signs I may have missed. FortNite needs some work in the performance section. It has long loading screens, constantly stutters in the menus, and crashes every so often. But during actual gameplay where it matters, it handles alright. It runs at a stable 30 frames except for when real big hordes come up. It's a pretty game in its own right, with most of its cartoonish style looking straight out of games like Plants vs. Zombies and Orcs Must Die. There's a surprising variety in enemy types, though the generated maps would benefit from some more templates. There are currently only forest and urban maps. The voice acting is passable for the most part, though it's not without its cringe moments. The guns sound like guns and the zombies sound like zombies. FortNite doesn't really have any standout score or sounds worth commenting on. It all serves its purpose and nothing more. The first few hours of FortNite are intriguing, with the game constantly throwing new mechanics and ideas at you. When you have the resources, collaborating with a group to build an epic base is always a great time. There are some truly creative ways to handle the horde should you choose to search for them. As you get further into the game, the mechanics give way to their true grindy ways. From then on, it's how well you click with the building and the combat that will decide if you stick with it. Having a good group of friends will make the experience easier. I'm getting to the point where the grind is overtaking me, and I'm spending more time worrying about resources than I am actually playing the game. Despite this, I still find myself coming back for more. The base building is really quite addictive. There is a great game with some true potential here, but resource output needs to be tweaked and difficulty balanced if they want anyone more than a hardcore crowd to stick around. In its current state, FortNite receives a rent it recommendation from me. Play it for a few hours, see if it's for you, and then maybe pick it up. The game is going to be in early access for about a year, and then transitioning into free to play. While the core gameplay is fun and definitely has potential to be something great, the grind and reliance on microtransactions overshadow that. Waiting until it becomes free to play is definitely your best bet, at least for now. As I mentioned earlier, this is a provisional review, and my opinion of the game may change over the course of the year. Be sure to stay tuned to GameCast to follow our coverage on not only FortNite, but the gaming industry as a whole. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found this review to be informative.